Dr. Freeman,
Yes.
I'd like to know your view on the busing situation, especially with the gas situation.
Of course, I'll be glad to tell you my view on the busing situation. The general, very little time. The fundamental idea is that people should be free to choose. That's the title of our TV series, incidentally, is Free to Choose. They should be free to choose whether they want to send their child to this school or that school or any other school. And the way to do it is to introduce a voucher scheme so that people can have freedom to choose. I am not in favor of compulsory busing. I am not in favor of compulsory integration. I am in favor of freedom.
What'd you say about voucher? The voucher what?
I would have a voucher system. You said I had to keep it brief, so I can only mention it. A system under which parents who chose not to send their child to a particular public school would be entitled to a payment like the GI Bill of Rights, a voucher which they could use at any school of their choice.
Yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to open a school.
Very good.
And I'm going to hire an advertising agency.
Well, wonderful.
And I'm going to have cheerleaders saying, go to Donahue High, because it's got the best football team. And I'm going to get all these vouchers, and I'm going to have the biggest super school in the whole county.
Wonderful. Marvelous.
I don't know if it's wonderful.
If you can succeed, you cannot succeed by advertising what's not true. Ford Motor Company couldn't sell an Edsel that way, and I don't think even Phil Donahue could sell lousy education that way.
Yes.
You know, people think the public at large are a bunch of stupid people. They're not.
Dr. Friedman, I wanted to point out that a lot of people will agree that medical care costs are terribly expensive these days, and some hospitals that I know of, particularly in the South, have cost containment programs that are voluntary. Are these feasible? And if they are, why don't other businesses start them?
Well, in the first place, every business has a cost containment program. There is no business in this country that doesn't unless it's on the verge of bankruptcy. In the second place, in all of these questions, one shouldn't look at the symptoms. One ought to go back and ask what the sources are. The reason why medical costs have been rising so rapidly in the country is, again, I sing the same old tune, but it happens to be true. Because whereas some 15 or 20 years ago, government spending on medical care accounted for something like 10–20% of the total amount spent on medical care. That was mostly in public health and for veterans. Today, it amounts to something like 40% or more of the total spending, and that's what's been driving these prices up.
The oil-rich Arabs are buying an awful lot of businesses in this country and farmland and things. Do you think it'd be wise for this country to institute law like Mexico did in the 50s and 60s, where it required that any company and land had to be at least over 50% owned by residents of the country?
I believe in individual freedom on an international basis and not on a national basis. I think you ought to be free to buy land if you want to in Mexico or anywhere else. And I would like those governments to let you. This country did not become great by preventing people from coming here from abroad and buying land and setting up businesses. Quite the other way around. And the reason we are making it so advantageous for them to buy here is because we're following such silly, counterproductive policies.
Didn't it do a lot of damage in Mexico, though, when
it did much more damage to
rebelled?
Mexico when they nationalized the oil industry. On the contrary, their measures to keep foreigners from acquiring assets in Mexico did a great deal of harm to Mexico, not good.
Yes.
You must distinguish between what looks on the surface and what it really is underneath.
I want to know if you charge a lot for your services. In other words, how much do you get paid?
As much as the market will stand. I believe in a market price, and I tell you something. I think people value what they get at what they pay for it.
And what are you doing with your money?
That is my business and not yours.
Dr. Freeman, I'd like to know your view on the busing situation, especially with the gas situation.
Of course, I'll be glad to tell you my view on the busing situation. The general, very little time.